How's it going, everyone? Peter Forrester here. I'm going to take a quick look at the winter weather forecast for this upcoming weekend. I'm recording this on January 2nd, about midday, so our 12Z models are out, and we're looking at some winter weather impacts for January 5th and 6th, that's Sunday and Monday, this upcoming weekend. I just wanted to take a look at the trends of the models to see if we can get an idea of this forecast for the Washington, D.C. area and Central Virginia. This is the forecast from the Weather Prediction Center. Right now, the forecast is out for day 4 and day 5, and we see this nice swath of greater than 90% probability for snow and sleet, QPF exceeding 0.25 inches. So a quarter inch of QPF equals winter storm impacts for this entire area. It doesn't quite extend into the Washington, D.C. area yet, the super high probabilities, but I do expect those probabilities to be increased as we expand towards day 3 range when the models get a little bit more clear. So day 4, day 5, we've got this nice swath right across the southern Midwest into the mid-Atlantic, straight towards the Washington, D.C. area. This is a Miller B system, so we get our low pressure to form in the lee of the Rocky Mountains in the Great Plains, and then it tracks basically due east until it hits the coast, and then we'll lift up north. Thanks to WeatherWorks for this nice graphic. I just found it on Google. But we see that one of the classic elements of our Miller B system is number one, this basically due east track across the southern Midwest, and right along that track we get a transition from cold rain in the southern threshold of the system to snow in the northern threshold. But what makes these significant is usually the transition zone between the rain and the snow. We'll get areas of sleet and freezing rain, especially with this setup. So the highest impacts are actually likely to be right along or just to the north of where the low tracks. So that's really going to matter for us, where exactly this low forms and then how it tracks across to the mid-Atlantic. Further north in the Midwest, Ohio Valley into Pennsylvania and New York, you're looking at higher probabilities of just snow, but there is a pretty sharp northern cutoff for the precipitation in this kind of event. So it'll be a narrow corridor of relatively high snow totals and then down to nothing as you keep going further north. So let's take a look at the models as they come in. This is the European model. It's currently running. I don't think it's going to go quite far enough to see the system at day 4 just yet. It does not, but we can take a look at the setup through here. So Friday morning into late Friday evening, we get this nice clipper system that's coming across the mid-Atlantic. This is actually a pretty convective clipper system. There's an upper level low that's associated with the precipitation here, and if we take a look at the forecast soundings, we've got very steep lapse rates, which is this temperature profile here, and that'll allow for some instability to develop, and then we have saturated moisture from about 850 millibars up to just under 500 millibars. And so we'll be able to get some nice convective snow showers out of this, especially out here to the east of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The global models aren't able to accurately model convective profiles, so we're showing rain here, but this is actually likely to be grapple because our wet bulb temperature is just at about freezing. So we'll get convective storms lifted through the mid layers here with some nice dendritic growth zone, and then we'll precipitate out through this dry layer, and so this will be mostly grapple storms. So this system actually brings our temperature profile into place, and then it's not going to move too much after we've set this cold air in place. So we see here Friday, this is as our upper level low comes through, our surface temperatures are in the 40s, but we'll be able to get some snow out of this because it's pretty dry air at the surface. And then behind the system, we bring in our shot of cold air, down 30s, down to the south, mid-20s in Virginia, up into Pennsylvania. And this sets the stage. So we're going to get this nice gradient of cold air set basically east to west, and this defines even though we're 2 or 3 days ahead of when the wintry precipitation is actually going to start with our big Miller B system, the gradient for the temperature is already set in place. So we establish this, and we see that during the nights the cold air drifts a little bit south, but during the daytime our east-west temperature gradient is just about set here. So we can see, if we go back to the precipitation, there's our clipper system with the cold upper level low coming through on Friday. Then Saturday, Sunday, we maintain the dry air, and this is very dry air at the surface. This is going to be dew points in the 0 degrees Fahrenheit to the about 10 degrees Fahrenheit range, with temperatures in the 20s and 30s. So very dry air that's being pushed in from this high pressure to the north. And then our Miller B system comes across. So let's take a look at how this is going to set up. Right now, we've got our main piece of energy coming in from the Pacific Ocean right here. It's going to have to cross the high terrain of the western U.S. before it really sets up the exact location of where the storm is going to track across. So a look at the full range of the GFS here. We see this piece of energy that was showing up off the coast, making landfall by about Friday morning, maybe Friday afternoon in the Pacific Northwest. And then we track this low pressure system across the high terrain, and we get some nice lee cyclogenesis that happens on Sunday, so early Sunday on the Great Plains. And remember, we had this temperature profile set due east and west from about Kansas all the way to Virginia, and that's right where our low pressure is going to develop. And then we follow this and note that the low pressure starting in on the Kansas-Oklahoma border on Sunday morning, and then it's going to track basically due east to the Virginia-North Carolina border by Monday afternoon. So classic Miller B system, and then it's just actually going to continue due east. But we see this gradient of snow to the north, rain to the south, maybe even some convective showers down here. Probably not severe weather with this system based off this profile. Maybe a little bit of severe weather, but heavy rain to the south, and then we get our temperature gradient of freezing rain, sleet, and then snow, and that's going to track due east. Let's take a look at this system in the upper levels. This is our vorticity map. We see this main piece of energy make landfall Saturday morning in the Pacific Northwest. We see our lee cyclogenesis Sunday morning in the Great Plains as our northern energy tracks across the high terrain and then is able to form in the lee. And then it tracks due east in this nice trough that forms here. This is still a positive tilt, but it'll go negative tilt over here out in the Atlantic Ocean. So let's take a closer look at how this system has been trending. This is the last about a dozen model runs of the GFS, and this is valid for Monday morning at 12Z, so pretty early Monday morning. So if we start back for the model runs from a couple of days ago, we can see that this system has trended faster and further north. So if we compare our main precipitation shield, this is showing for Monday morning, compared to the most recent model run, in our precipitation field for Monday morning is way out here over Washington, D.C. Also compare where the low pressure is. We have it down here in, this is going to be Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. We got lost on the state names there for a second. But as we come forward to the most recent model runs, that's almost up in the Ohio River Valley in northern Kentucky and southern Ohio. So this system is following a classic northern trend for this kind of system. So unfortunately, it looks increasingly likely that the wintry precipitation is going to be a mix of sleet, freezing rain, and snow, especially across central Virginia, but maybe even leaking into the Washington, D.C. area and up to the Mason-Dixon line. We take a look at forecast soundings. We can see still pretty cold at the surface here, but our mid-level warm nose is going to spoil the snow chances for much of Virginia and the mid-Atlantic, just a little bit above this freezing line. we're going to turn into basically melting those snowflakes as they come in from the upper levels, melting them and then refreezing them down at the surface. And the exact depth of this does matter if we're going to get sleet and freezing rain precipitation, but basically anything above this freezing line right here means that it's not going to be snow. All right, so let's take a quick look at the ensemble model outputs. And this is for snow, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, snow greater than 4 inches. There's certainly going to be areas that could see considerably more than 4 inches. On the northern edge of the precipitation shield, we're looking at maybe 10 to 11 inches as the maximum potential for this storm with the 10-to-1 ratio. So we go through, this is going to be Monday and Tuesday, and this is 24-hour snowfall total. So our 24-hour totals, we can see that the highest probability for more than 4 inches is up on the Mason-Dixon line into southern Pennsylvania, maybe including Winchester. The DC area, only a 39% chance of greater than 4 inches of snow. And then down in central Virginia into southern Virginia, those values greatly drop off. This has also been trending north. If we go back to our previous runs, like the 0Z GEFS, we can see that our probabilities for greater than 4 inches of snow were actually centered over Winchester into the DC area, and our probabilities for this amount of snow even extended down towards like the Lynchburg area. But in the more recent model runs, this has continued to trend north by quite a bit, and our probabilities are going down. So unfortunately, I think that there's a pretty good chance that the Washington, D.C. area is included in this mix of wintry precipitation with sleet and freezing rain mixing in, spoiling the high snow chances. We can take a look at the deterministic GFS to see what the 10-to-1 snow totals will be. The GFS comes in with about 10 inches of snow for the Washington, D.C. area, 7.5 inches for Winchester, and then down to just 2 inches in the Richmond area. This is likely probably too high. Again, this is a 10-to-1 ratio, right on the line. You're probably going to be close to 10-to-1. Kuchera says higher than that as you go further north. But as noted before, this system is trending north, and warm noses also tends to be slightly warmer and stronger than forecasted by global models. So, with Washington, D.C. being so close to this line, I actually think that this is a pretty considerable overestimation for the amount of snow that Washington, D.C. is going to get. Here's our maximum temperature through 500 millibars, and we can see that on Monday, midday, and this is about the peak of precipitation as the low pressure comes in through North Carolina here. We see that Washington, D.C., even on this global model, is actually right on that freezing line. So if you want snow, the entire column has to be below freezing. So as soon as you transition from blue, which is below freezing, to green, which is above freezing, you start mixing in other types of precipitation. See that in central Virginia, we're 3 degrees above freezing at some point in the column. This is that warm nose coming all the way in. And 3 degrees is just going to be sleet. Actually, this is probably a freezing rain profile. There's not a very deep cold layer here, so this is just going to be marginal freezing rain. But up here in the Washington, D.C. area, we're right on that 0 degrees Celsius line. And if you're right at or just like half a degree above that, you're probably going to get sleet here in the DC area. So just keep that in mind, that the southern edge of these snow total maps that you're probably going to be see floating around are likely overestimations because this warm nose is trending north and will be stronger than forecasted. As we continue to go through the day, we see that behind there's this nice cold shot that comes in. Again, this is the maximum temperature through the full profile, but we're looking at 5 to 7 degrees below freezing for everyone here at this point. And so on the back end, we can actually get a pretty good bet for snow. This comma head is a really interesting feature. I haven't seen it talked about too much just yet, but on the back end of the Miller B system, we can see a wrap around to some of this moisture out in the Atlantic. and the moisture overhead actually moves east to west. So this is our best chance for snow for the entire region. It's not going to be a lot of snow, but it will be nice and cold, so our Kuchera ratio will be high. Here in central Virginia, where I'm located, that's a pretty good shot of snow, and this is Monday evening into early Tuesday morning. And again, most areas are snow here. So really, we're watching early onset snow. This is going to have to overcome some dry air at the surface. We see that our dew point difference is quite high, so our wet bulb temperature will need to saturate this all the way down to get significant snow accumulation. So even though this says that it's snowing here in central Virginia on Sunday evening, this is light snow. It's probably not going to accumulate very much. Best chance for heavy accumulating snow is early Monday morning, especially in the Washington, D.C. area. But by this time, we've already mixed in sleet and freezing rain into central Virginia. And the GFS, remember that maximum temperature plot that we were looking at actually brings that warm nose all the way up to D.C. here. So we could even be mixing in this areas that are showing heavy snow. Again, this is Monday morning. By Monday midday, we have a dry slot, so any temperature, any precipitation that falls here is likely going to be above freezing because we pull that warm nose all the way north. And then as we go into the evening, we get our cold air returning Monday evening, and then this is our best chance for widespread snow, but again, it's clear that the moisture here is not particularly deep, so we're looking at marginal, maybe 1 to 2 inches of accumulation on the back end of this. So thanks for watching. Be sure to track with the latest forecasts. Of course, all of these forecast elements could change. Overall takeaways, I would say that first major winter weather of the season for Washington, D.C. area and Virginia. But keep your hopes limited in that we're probably going to see a lot of mixing, and so the big snow totals that are showing up on some of the global models are likely to be overestimations, especially on the southern edge. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.